All right, boys. 53-man roster is set. We've got our list. Who's excited here?
This guy. I am. Bring it on. We're done. Preseason's done.
I know. Excited for the preseason to be done. Pat and Brando next to me. I'm John. This is Not Another Buffalo Podcast. You can find us on all platforms at Not Buff Podcast. So Pat's back. We haven't seen Pat in a couple of weeks. I honestly thought that we wouldn't see Pat until he was already a dad, and maybe not even for like, I was thinking he'd be like 2 months a dad by the time we got him back on. So Pat, thanks for taking the time. How's stuff going? It's getting down to the wire here.
Yeah,
huh?
Everything's going well. We were in the hospital. We had a false alarm, which is good because, it made me realize got to make sure you got gas in the car, at all times. You can't, I had just enough to get there, but you're like, if this was myself, I wouldn't care, but
Yeah. A baby's coming out, so we got to get there.
She would not have been happy if I was like, hey, we got to stop for gas, but how are you guys doing though?
Oh man, if that's not like a thumbs up for a test run right there, I don't know what is. But
that's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Brando, how about you? School starting back up for you?
Yeah, kiddos are coming back. I actually almost ran out of gas on the way home today. I overestimated how much I had left. It was below the red line. I ran out once on the way home from the Bills-Packers preseason game a few years ago. And I got stuck in traffic and I couldn't get off and ran out of gas. That's the only time I've ever ran out of gas. But yeah, not bad. Kids are coming back. It sucks, but it's fine. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Summer's not over until it is like Bills game where it is raining and 40 degrees.
That's a decent way to look at it. Yeah. So, I mean, we might make it 2 weeks into the season, right?
Better not be 40 degrees September 15th.
Well, while we have a quick second, I want to thank our sponsor, Small City Realty. If you're looking to buy, sell, or manage property in Western New York, our guy, Zach Korzelius, you can call him at 585-409-1088. He's with Small City Realty. Again, 585-409-1088. Best guy to talk to, best realtor in town for buying, selling, or if you live out of state and you want to manage your property in Western New York, he's a good contact to have for that too. So Joe Andreessen makes the 53, guys. Like, Pat, you're going to have a Joe Andreessen 44 jersey, just like your high school number. And he kind of reminds me of Pat running around out there, like the way he plays.
You're just
a
like,
little bit. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him gator roll anybody. So there's, there's not that. But
and you look up the stats on Max Prep, very average. But like, he's just one of those guys where you're like, he is in the right place at the right time, enough of the time that I don't know. It's cool. It reminds me of, you guys will remember him, John DeGiorgio. Do you remember him from back in the day?
Yeah.
I think so.
Saginaw Valley State. So. He was like, everyone was super hyped for him. He was like same thing, like a preseason darling. And he played a little bit in the regular season back in the drought years and wasn't impressive, but
he had a highlight or something, right? He made a couple splash plays.
I mean, it'll be cool though. I don't know. It was interesting though too. Marquez Valdez-Scantling making the roster with a broken neck. Well, I don't want to, but
yeah. Right. Well, he has a fully guaranteed contract, which is probably the reason why he's on there, and for good reason, because the Bills don't have a lot of cap to play with if they were to kind of cut somebody like that. So
you can't take a dead cap like that. But the IR rules are interesting. Did you see them? The new ones this year?
Yeah. So you can designate 8 players to return, and Matt Milano obviously on that list already, as well as Evans on that list too, Darrington Evans. So he's somebody who's on IR and could come back this season. So the good news is Milano was put on IR today, because if they did it tomorrow, he wouldn't be able to return.
Yeah.
So,
any cuts that you're surprised about?
Well, before we get to other stuff, like let's not hop over Joe Andreessen here too. So Pat, to give you the recap here, Brando and I had a spirited debate last week because Brando thought that there were 100 other, there's 100 in the league. So maybe 99 other Joe Andreessens out there. And we started with, can you name 3 on the Bills? Because that would be 3 per team. Low average, right? And so we didn't get past that. So Balin Spector, always injured. Who also made the 53-man roster, by the way?
Yeah.
So anyway, Brandon, I think that we've probably come closer together in our viewpoints, because obviously we've had one more preseason game. We got to see Joe Andreessen. He came down to earth a little bit more. He wasn't as electric as he was. He wasn't in the right spot for every play. Gave up that touchdown on the first drive. Also kind of missed his gap on an opportunity to stuff a run on the goal line later in the game. So came back down to earth a little bit more of what we expected. He didn't play lights out like he did against Chicago. So my expectations have gone from like, wow, this guy looks amazing to, he has some rookie flaws and things that you'd expect from an undrafted free agent out of UB, right? But he still has the tools and stuff like that. And so you're betting on his upside, obviously. But Brandon, has your opinion kind of gone, since he's made the 53-man roster, has your low opinion kind of come a little bit more towards, mine's come down a little bit. Has yours gone up? Moderately?
This is the part that I think, maybe there's not 100 Joe Andreessens in the NFL, but there's how many undrafted free agents make a roster on average in the league? 3?
Undrafted rookie free agents?
On each?
Yeah.
Undrafted rookie free agents.
UDRFA.
I don't know. I think maybe 2 to 3 per team.
Are you counting practice squad as well?
Not counting practice squad.
53-man roster.
There might be teams with 0, honestly.
That's
a good stat to look at.
Is that Googleable?
I mean, before you guys get too much on the hype train or the lack of hype train, it reminds me of, do you guys remember when Cam Lewis, undrafted rookie free agent, joined the Bills from UB, and we were like, he's a feel-good story. Then a couple games of getting absolutely torched. I'm like, I don't care. This guy could have came from, what I mean? Whatever, Mount Sinai of Moses, heaven, Christ University, and I wouldn't even care. I'd be like, get him off the field. So I don't know.
Well, I feel like Cam Lewis has a much more positive story over the years that he's been here because he's still here. He's on this 53-man roster. He's,
comfortably.
I mean, as a special teams player, I would say primarily.
Right.
A good special teams player.
And it's because he's versatile. He can play corner or safety, and that matters when you're going into your depth as far as DBs, which the Bills kept a lot of DBs, by the way, and some surprises in there that we'll get to in a second. But Brandon, one thing that I wanted to ask you about it, because with Joe Andreessen, I know you're not excited, and your main complaint is like, why is this the Bills' first option, right?
Yeah, and just when
I'm here to tell you that, like, first of all, he's the last linebacker on the roster, so he's not going to get a jersey on game day, at least for the beginning of the season. But let me compare 2 players for you. Do you feel better about late in the season, everybody's injured, Joe Andreessen coming into a game, or do you want to sign up the experienced player, AJ Klein? At least Joe Andreessen has the athleticism and the tools at this point, and you can teach him in the McDermott defense this year. He's going to learn a lot this year. He's going to get valuable reps in practice. He's probably only going to get better, I would think, this year. And he has the physical tools and skills. He's got the stereotypical Bills linebacker build. So do you feel better about his upside than putting in AJ Klein in a playoff game?
Hear me out. I am happy for him. And like you said, he's the third option, but we are already past our first option at linebacker. Again. Did I say again? Because I meant again. And the Bills are again sitting here with a hole. I don't want to hope for something. When you're hoping for something on an NFL field, you are out of control of what the event is going to happen. And the Bills are hoping that their receiving group is going to be enough to carry this offense. The Bills are hoping Josh Allen, even after trying to take some off his plate last year, they're hoping he can eat more on his plate because they're going to need more from him. The Bills are hoping Joe Brady can be better than Ken Dorsey. And now the Bills are hoping an undrafted rookie free agent could potentially come in later on in the season. Now, hear me out. This is the part that I'm upset about. You see a stud linebacker, Ernest Jones, being traded to the Titans for a 5th round pick, which is very tiny bit valuable. The Bills have 3 4th round picks going into next year's draft. And if you had a guy like that on your roster behind Matt Milano and behind Terrell Bernard, I would feel so much better about this defense than having an undrafted rookie free agent back there when you are in a playoff game going against the greatest tight end quarterback combo since Brady and Gronk. So that's my only thing. I can be happy for him. Maybe he earns his way on and he plays better, but I am not expecting something that does not happen often to happen here in Buffalo. I'm playing the odds, say what you want, but I don't ever want to see this team get beat because they were not prepared with their depth like they were last year. I just think a 5th round pick just to have insurance with no Matt Milano there, that would have been a no-brainer. Maybe they talked about it. Brandon Beane talks about stuff all the time, but I don't know. That's all I got on it. I'm happy for him, but
yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not like they don't care and they're just hoping. They're just doing the best that they can with the resources available.
But they have resources.
It's limited resources. Right. But so it's not just a 5th round draft pick. It's a $3 million. Do they have $3 million in cap money right now?
They should be at like 7 after the Trey White money freed up.
Yeah. I don't know where their cap is right now. Anyone want to find that?
Yeah, I'm looking. 10.5. Boom.
All right. So, I mean, they could have, but again, like,
What do you feel better about? Would you rather have give up a fifth round pick?
Does Ernest Jones play inside linebacker? Does he play in a 3-4 or a 4-3? Because it's a weak side linebacker that you're looking for. It's a coverage linebacker that you're looking to replace Milano with. So I don't know. That might not even be.
I'm also curious to see.
He's an inside linebacker. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a Terrell Bernard replacement, and he might not even be. He might not be the same kind of, he looks a little bit bigger than Terrell Bernard, honestly. And so he might not be the same kind of coverage linebacker that they want to play, if he's used to playing in a 4-3 rather than a 3-4.
I just think that you can make it work. You had Milano and Edmonds together. If you have the intangibles, kind of like Joe Andreessen has, if you have the speed and you have the ability, I think he called plays for the Rams. So I don't think, when you're in a 2 linebacker set 85% of the time, that matters less than if you're running a 4-3, like a true 4-3. You're taking the second spot, which is who's the guy? Dorian Williams. Like, you're making them battle. And now Dorian Williams could still be put out in a 4-3. Like, if you're in a 4-3 now, which they play 15% of the time, maybe, I don't know, you have a weak linebacker on the field. I don't know. It's just an option. It's just an alternative. Just like you could go get the receiver from Houston. What's his name?
Noah Brown.
No, not Noah Brown. The other guy. I'll find him.
Robert Woods also on the Texans roster, interestingly enough.
The good old Bobby Trees.
It's on my Twitter. I just tweeted it the other day.
Noah Brown was released today. So that's the one. Noah Brown has a little bit of injury history, but put up, I tweeted this out today. Noah Brown last year put out 2 consecutive games of over 150 yards last year.
I mean, I wouldn't hate him. I just think I was thinking more of John Mechie III.
Yeah. Also, Noah Brown plays special teams. Gunner.
Yeah.
So,
but what moves the needle? What is he to bring in? Is he replacing Marquez Valdez-Scantling? Is he replacing
probably Valdez-Scantling, because if you can get him to play consistently, right? Yeah. Because he's wide receiver 6 and going to contribute on special teams, which MVS is wide receiver 6 and doesn't contribute on special teams. So I think Noah Brown is not only an upgrade over MVS as far as straight line speed, downfield ability, but also plays teams as well.
Yeah, I would be happy if they got him. And I just think that even like John Mechie probably slots in right next to Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel. He's that kind of receiver, not anything game breaker. Has big games. Sometimes he's fast. It's just the thought that you need to be aware of your depth, because we have gotten screwed on our depth. We got screwed when Cole Beasley destroyed his leg in that game before the perfect game in our playoff run, right? In 2021, right? That happened. He had a foot injury. So he was hurt in the playoffs. Then we get the linebacker trouble. I mean, John Brown was hurt going into the playoffs. Diggs has battled injuries. I need to see, Brandon Beane's been so self-aware as a GM. I just feel like I need to see a little bit more of, I have cap space here. I know you want to rebuild. We have 3 4th round picks next year, 2 2nd round picks, and you have holes. You don't need these 7th and 6th and 5th round picks, and you could get added depth to really make a run this year. Because I feel like one injury on any one of these, if Curtis Samuel's turf toe is bad, if James Cook rolls an ankle, or if Bernard goes out, whatever it is, you got to have something there, because you have Josh Allen, and you should be feeling the urgency to add to your roster.
Right. Well, maybe it's just as simple as Brandon Beane feels differently about the depth that he has than you do. Because it's really easy to say the grass is greener on some of these other teams but I mean, these are all guys that weren't good enough to make their own team's roster. Like, if we're a Dolphins podcast, are we mad at our GM for not jumping on KJ Hamler or Andy Isabella right now?
I'm not even mad about him not touching any of these guys. I want him to make a trade. I want him to make more trades like he did today. He did a late round pick swap to bring in a little bit of secondary depth. I want to see some movement.
That wasn't for a secondary depth. That was for a kick returner, though. He is a secondary player.
Is he a starting kick returner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
that's the interesting cut that he had too, because they released Daquan Hardy, which he had a great preseason, and that was probably the biggest surprise cut that I saw, because he was, playing slot, playing outside corner. He seemed to have won the kick returner job at this point, but so here's hoping he doesn't get poached off the practice squad like, Rashad Wildgoose, a Jack Williams, insert player here, Jack Anderson, not Williams, insert player here, late round pick who was on the Bills practice squad and got poached. So
I think this team is not as deep as those teams were when we got players poached. But
Maybe,
I don't know. This
maybe.
is that time. You know, you got a week and a half before the openers, and then you got 4 days before the Dolphins on Thursday night. And I think if you're gonna bring somebody in, you got to do it this weekend, like coming in, because they need to learn the playbook. You see Ben DiNucci get released, and who are you gonna get? I don't think you can get anybody to learn the offense fast enough. So if you're gonna get a guy, just there's movement right now. There's a window for Brandon Beane. I feel like I would rather do it now and let the guy sit the bench than, you know, I'd rather have a safety net. I don't know. I don't want to see it happen again. We've seen it too many times.
Well, yeah, but I mean, to be fair too, it's like you only have so many resources to fill those positions, right? And I think any team would have been pretty screwed if they lost 3 or 4 linebackers. They were down 4 linebackers. I mean, what team goes into their playoff game down 4 linebackers where you're, you know, in a position to sign AJ Klein off the street? So, I mean, there's only 6 linebackers on the roster right now. So it's like if you're 5th and 6th linebackers who their role on the roster is to play special teams, because you need guys to play special teams, you know, at those positions. Like, are you gonna sign that $3 million guy you mentioned to be your 5th or 6th linebacker? Like, he's not going to come here for that if he's starting caliber linebacker, but like, you know, you usually can't find you're not going to get starter quality players at your depth positions. Like, it's unfortunately just not how it works. Like, you can have your second string guys maybe, but like these 5th, 6th guys on the roster, like I'll agree that like QB2 might be the biggest depth issue on this roster with Mitch Trubisky right now. So if you're the guy who's like poking the stick at Brandon Beane going do something, maybe it's there that you want to get a guy like Tyler Huntley or something like that.
Well, the thing is this guy Jones is 24 years old. He's making $3 million, and he had 2 interceptions as a rookie, and he played great on a Super Bowl winning team. He had 100 tackles in 2022, 145 tackles last year, 14 for a loss, 4.5 sacks, 6 quarterback hits. So, I mean, you could extend him. He could play as a rental, but it's just an option. It's just there for an option. I'd love to hear if Brandon Beane calls on these guys. Like, what does he think of this? But the farther that we get away from, sorry, I didn't mean to keep going.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Just when you think back, we talk about this all the time. Just John Brown, Cole Beasley, Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders. You name the pieces all around here. It was explosive. It was beautiful. It was high powered depth everywhere you could lose to. And if that roster, we looked at this roster, like 2021 Bills would smoke these Bills right now, I think. So just to see where we're at now. And I think if you are going to change, like if you don't know who you are as a person right now, you're going to be a different person. And the Bills are farther and farther away from that person, that team that they were a few years ago. And like, I'm just dying to get back to that. We were on that last week, John. You and I, we were on nostalgic feeling, and we shouldn't feel nostalgic. It's happening right now. So just go get these guys. That shows that you care, Brandon Beane, that you also feel this way. But maybe it's coming. You know, I'm ahead of myself because he's got so much cap space next year and all these assets. He's two sixths.
And let's see this team play too, right? Yeah. Because last year's team, who we'd all agree that we felt better about the roster heading into last season than we do this season, right? Like at least you do, Brandon. Felt better about last year's roster. Yeah. And last year's team was 6-6 at a certain point. So the expectation bar is low enough that we're set up to enjoy the season, which is good. But I mean, another area of this roster that we're not talking about, that we used to complain about, the 2021, 2020 roster, that we're like, oh, if that was just better, then we'd be there. It's the offensive line. And the Bills right now, I don't know if you've paid attention to any of these rookies like Grable or Van Pran Granger. Any of these guys, like, you know, the Joe Marinos of the world love this offensive line depth that they have right now. Like, this is probably one of the deepest offensive lines in the league. They have a ton of young talent coming in. They've got those 2 young tackles. And they're in a spot where Spencer Brown's in a contract year, and they're probably not going to have to pay him next year because these guys coming up are going to be good enough. And that's a place that the Bills haven't been for a couple of years, having that much offensive line depth where you feel really good about the next guy up if somebody goes down. All I know is, like, I know skill position players, you take injuries there, it's the same thing. But if you have a really solid offensive line and you give Josh Allen time, I mean, that's going to benefit the Bills just as much, right? Which one is better, right? Yeah, but I think that's going to help immensely this year. So I'm happy about that.
You're talking about this O-line, and I don't know. Again, when we say we have all of these guys ready to go, we are hoping that they develop into what we have. We are putting faith in our coaching staff. I don't care if it's the second preseason game, third preseason game. Like, it's still the preseason, and there's not elite talent on the field for these guys to go up against. And in practice, they might be looking good against the second team. I don't know. I'm taking it for a grain of salt until I see it in a game.
I mean, there's four
But
of the five.
losing Mitch
Four of the
Morse-
same five guys are back though too. I feel like that's a litmus test.
This is
you know, in itself.
for sure.
But
Having Mitch Morse not be there, no one's talking about it. And I feel like it could be a bigger deal than it needs to be, or it could be fine. But I really think having him in that center position, and that was last year's O-line was better than this year's O-line, right? I mean, you think?
I don't know. One more year of Osiris Torrance.
Yeah. What's his sophomore season going to look like?
Right. And it's Aaron Cromer has done a great job with these young offensive linemen.
Yeah.
And
that's the hope, right? We got him. So all of these linemen could come out.
Yeah, and Ryan Vandemark is the other guy who's a young guy, and he was a rookie last year. So he was a guy who flashed in preseason, made the roster, was just a depth guy at tackle, wasn't really seen, but had a good season and has really come along and is like solid backup at that point too. So these are the guys that we don't talk that much about because, again, most people don't talk about the offensive line that much because skill position players are flashier, easier to talk about, easier to argue about. You see them more. We're not judging offensive line talent in these games very often, but I think that's a reason to be excited. And again, defensive line depth has been an issue over the past few years as well. But again, more depth than ever at that position. So if Daquan Jones can stay healthy, there's a lot of ifs there. But last year's secondary too, it's a banged up Jordan Poyer and an old Micah Hyde. So I know we're not super excited about what we have at safety right now because of the injuries that are already happening at that position. But how much different is it going to be?
I'm not worried at all. We got one ace on the outside. Douglas, you put Benford over there. McDermott, do your magic. Do your magic, buddy.
Well, that's what I was thinking when you were talking about the team being 6-6 last year, and everyone, you got Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde all banged up, and we're saying, please, Brandon Beane, do something, help our secondary. And he did right before the deadline. I don't know if you can, get a second Rasul Douglas in there, but I'm not giving up hope, even if it is in season.
That was a perfect trade. That was
even if we're talking trade. Like week 5, week 6, like I'm not giving up hope that he's going to make some. And what do we gave like a 6th or a 5th for him? Like we didn't give up a lot.
There's a 3rd and a 5th, I believe. Yes. Yeah, good point, Pat. Good point. That could happen. That was tough. Watching that game before he got here, that defense was not looking good. And as soon as he came in, boom, they hit another level, I think.
So, Brandon, you don't feel good about any of the wide receiver depth that might be available on the practice squad, whether it be KJ Hamler, Tyrell Shavers, any of those guys?
And I sold off all practice squad receivers with Brandon Riley, and we can go back and back until Stevie Johnson. I remember I had a Stevie Johnson football card, like 7th round pick. Who's this guy? I'm mad, and you're like a 70 overall. And then, whoa, route runner. Okay, let's go. But I mean, who's the CFL guy that I liked? It wasn't
Duke Williams.
Duke Williams. Yeah. I was hyped for him. I was really hyped for him. He was a stud in the CFL. So that didn't work out. I don't know.
So caught a pass in the playoff game, but
was targeted 14 times.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, but I don't know. I feel like there's reasons for optimism and there's reasons for pessimism. They're just going to have to play the games and kind of figure it out because, again, like I think the offense is going to look different if, I don't think that they're going to funnel through wide receivers like they used to. So, they've only rostered 5 the last 2 years. Last year, Justin Shorter was rostered and then put on IR. So they really only carried 5 receivers at the start of the season, mostly because that 6th wide receiver has to contribute on special teams. So I'd be super excited about a Noah Brown. I don't know what player gets cut to bring him onto the 53 if they end up signing him. But there's not many other people that excite me. Like everyone, let's talk about the backup quarterback thing because everyone was mad when Malik Willis was traded for a 7th round pick to the Packers, I believe. I tweeted this out as well. I took in a Titans training camp practice last year. And Brandon, you remember this because we talked about it on the show afterwards and you shook your head at me for my take on, what's his name? Mayonnaise Coffee.
Oh, Will Levis.
Will Levis.
I'm still shaking my head. I have a few Titans in fantasy this year, so I hope he's a little better, but we'll see. Yeah.
Well, I went to that one practice and I came away thinking like Ryan Tannehill is Ryan Tannehill. He always looks like Ryan Tannehill. He'll just slowly fall off a cliff at the end of his career. Like maybe it won't even be a cliff. It'll just be a decline.
Will Levis had juice.
Will Levis had he was really sharp on decision making, threw the most touchdowns in practice, was fitting balls into windows, and looked like he's going to be starting midseason. Whether Ryan Tannehill gets his head bit off or they just decide that it's time to start young guy. So I called that, and that happened midseason. I watched Malik Willis play, and if you thought that Mitch Trubisky had trouble pulling the trigger on throws, Malik Willis was so slow to make decisions. Really? And it's not because he lacks physical traits. He has that mobility. He has that, he can run out of the pocket, but he's just so indecisive. He doesn't make good decisions throwing the football. So he's throwing interceptions. He was throwing balls late when guys were open and then not open. And he just kind of looked like a bust. He kind of looked like Cardell Jones out there a little bit. So there's that. And so anyone
is Isaiah Hodgins available too? Sorry.
He is. I don't get super excited about that idea either. I think that if he's not making the Giants roster at this point,
he's not making our roster. Yeah.
Right. So
isn't it? It's cool though. It makes that worth going to a training camp. Back to your story, just to be able to be like, look at this guy. The eye test passes.
The training camp for the Titans is much more of an exclusive thing. It's not a big thing where you have thousands of people there like Bill's training camp. There's a couple of grandstands, and you're sitting behind players' wives and girlfriends and stuff like that. And then they have a small air conditioned area that's up above the practice fields. And so I had a friend who had tickets, and so I randomly got to go because of that reason. It's really easy to do the armchair GM thing when another team signs a player that you kind of wanted or something like that. But not all these players are good fits for your team or your system. And I think that's probably the case with the linebacker you're talking about, Brandon, because again, that's a Mike linebacker. Is he even going to sign for a team where he knows he's not going to start? If he's a starting quality caliber linebacker, he's probably going to go somewhere that has a path to starting, because if he's in the last year of his rookie deal, he's going to want to sign a contract extension the next year. And he wouldn't do that as a non-starter.
I think he would be on the field. He would play over Dorian Williams. And then you look at Matthew Judon, traded from New England. He said once he got to...
They're different positions. They need an outside linebacker.
Well, that's what I'm saying about I don't know. I mean, I feel like Edwan Ulofoshio, right? Isn't he's the fifth round guy? I mean, he fits that criteria, relatively the same position, and he played at a super high level last year, in the playoff and stuff. Whatever. I'm not saying Washington State didn't get stomped or whatever, but it would be interesting to see him fill that role as well. I mean, I feel like we do have guys on the roster, and like you said, Brandon, if you're hoping you're not...
Pat, you just inadvertently did the McDermott quote, which when he got here, he's like, you ever see that meme? He's like, there are guys on this roster. That was a Sean McDermott quote when he got here, and cut half of them. But
I looked at Ernest Jones' 86.2 run defense grade. But then he's only tied for, which was tied for 7th at the position, but he was below 60 in his coverage grade. So what do you just
sounds like Dorian Williams. That's what Dorian Williams. That's the kind of the book on Dorian Williams right now. He's great run stuffing, little indecisive in pass coverage. So
we're just hoping on him to develop, right? Maybe the coaches see it.
Yeah, so. or a Balin Spector can stay healthy or something like that, which, same draft as Terrell Bernard there, and was in the running for the starting linebacker position last year.
There was a little competition there for a minute.
There was. We forget about that. But anyway, Brandon, you had a top 10 list this week. Do you want to get into that? It's not John's top 10 this week. Brandon put this together, so...
I enjoyed putting this together. I scoured the internet. I was in 4 fantasy drafts this weekend. I have said yes to everybody that has asked me. I'm going all in on it this year. Give me something to do, right? Some of these names are from leagues I'm in. Some of them are from the internet. I put them all together. So this is Brandon's top 10 fantasy football names for the 2024 season. And we are coming in at number 10. I really like this one, but I had to put it at 10. Nakua Matata.
That's good. Nakua Matata.
All right. Number 9
comes from... What a wonderful phrase.
Yes. What a wonderful phrase. Number 9 comes from one of our home leagues, and it's Digs in a Blanket. Kind of like Pigs in a Blanket. It's Digs in a Blanket. Yep. Number 8.
Whose team is that, by the way?
I don't remember. All right. Number 8. I have a slasher here because you could go either way with this. I picked this player late in a draft just to take this name, but it's Ford's F-150 or Ford Tough for the Cleveland running back.
Jerome Ford.
Yep.
Nice.
Number 7, I really liked this one. It's another one from a league that we are in, but it is unsolicited Dak picks for Dak Prescott. I thought that was pretty funny.
That was good. That's good.
Number 6, Love Thy Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors.
Yep.
I like it. I like it.
Number 5, a great restaurant, Olave Garden.
Oh, yes. Classic.
Okay, number 3 is from Nick Tamby's Keeper League. It is Orange Herbert.
Oh, Orange Sherbert.
Yep.
Nice. That one's a thinker.
That was number 4. I'm sorry. Number 4 was Orange Herbert. I don't know if I said number 3 or not. Okay, number 3. Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Hawk Tua.
Yes. Well, I mean, everyone was going to be naming their fantasy team that this
real
year.
original there.
Yeah. There's one of those in every single league.
Yep.
At least.
Okay. Number 2, I really like this one. La Porta Potty.
Nice.
And number 1, which is, selfishly my team name in the other league, it's Inglorious Staffords.
Nice. That's pretty good. That's a good break from Happy Holidays. Yeah. Like
couldn't take him anymore. He's not even available. It was very sad.
Shout out Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, there are a lot of good ones that did not make this. I could have made a whole nother honorable mentions list. If you like any of them, let me know. If you have any other good ones, put them in the comments.
For sure. I got to figure out what to name my team. I feel like I got to do something with James Conner because I've had James Conner on a fantasy team every single year that I've ever done fantasy football. For some reason, it's just worked out that way.
Call me maybe.
I don't know. We'll have to figure something out. But yeah. I thought we were going to do some Terminator reference in there. I knew we were going to get there somewhere. All right. You guys got anything else?
Countdown season. It's time.
This
is the best week. You get to wear all your Bill stuff leading up to the game.
Yeah. Well, next week we're going to be really getting into it. Probably doing some game picks here. Woo! And a couple of Brando's bets maybe for week 1.
Yeah. Before we do our game picks, I know we said it before, but I need to write it down so it's available. Can you give us all 3 seasons total, like our total record for game picks since we've done it?
Yes, I did that at the end of last season at your request.
I think you did.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I didn't write it down. I forgot. Yeah.
Oh, it's all right. No, I'll do the work twice for you, Brando. Brando is officially doing the spreadsheet this year for game picks. Brando will be managing the spreadsheet.
I can do that.
So actually, hey, that wouldn't be too bad. Maybe I will do that. And we'll see if Brandon's the math teacher he's cracked up to be.
Oh, kindergarten math is way different.
I don't know. I think you should start teaching these kids about the American odds system. Maybe start.
They already know. These middle schoolers already know.
All right, kids. Yeah. Minus 110 means the sports book is taking this percentage. Right. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Go Bills.
Go Bills.